from the Barbershop to Bali, Indonesia. Here we are, Lee.
Who'd have thought, hey?
Who would have thought when we met all those, however many years ago it was now. It was 2017, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So just for context, guys, this video is to tell a bit of an origin story about who we are, what we've done, how we're in business together, and how we've gone from being in the barbershop, working in the barbershop together, to now living in Bali, Indonesia, and we coach barbers, barbershop owners. We mentor them, we consult them full time. We help them live a life of more money, more impact, and more freedom. But we first created that life for ourselves. And today we're going to tell you the story as to how that happened.
Yeah.
So Lee, the day we met on Barber Tinder, it was at a hair competition.
I remember it well.
Yeah, man. That was crazy time, right? You've told that story quite a few times, but it was at a time in your career, as far as I'm remembering, that you were on the verge of maybe leaving the hair industry and going into something else. I had just moved to Australia. I was in Australia for about 6 months at that time. And it was the first ever hair competition that I entered in.
Was that the first one?
Very first.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't win anything, but...
Well, I didn't win that one that we were in either.
Yeah.
So I guess we both lost together. It was our first uniting moment. Yeah, I remember that time really well. That was the first point in my career. I remember I was 26. It was the first point in my career where I had the thought that I might not do this forever. And I thought I could leave this industry. And in the nature of not quitting very well and not giving up on things, I decided that I'd give it one more crack. I thought back to what was it that fired me up in this industry originally? What kept me in it in those early years? Because I started when I was 15. I was very young. You know, I had no idea where it would go, what I was even really doing. I didn't know anyone that was a hairdresser. No one in my family was a hairdresser. It was an idea around the dinner table one night. And I thought, what kept me in it? And the thing that kept me in it was competition. I have to be like brutally honest with myself about that. It was competition. And I thought, okay, can I find a competition? And I asked a few people. The people around me didn't know. So I just took to the internet and saw that the Hair Expo was having a hair comp in Melbourne. And I thought, okay, put my money where my mouth is. If I am as good as I think I am and I can do what I say I can do, I'm going to do it. So I entered the hairdressing competition, the female model haircut and colour combination, and I entered the men's, it would have been some sort of barbering. There probably would have been different categories, right? But whatever that category was. Entered that, but at this time I was a full-time hairdresser. So I was cutting men's hair, but I was running off of methods and techniques that I'd learned, from years gone, which were probably a bit outdated. And I just pieced together some of the stuff that I'd seen online to try and get what I thought was a modern barbering haircut. I watched some Pacino's DVDs, which I've still got actually. Turned up, did the comps, won the hairdressing one, which was fantastic. Did a really cool haircut and colour, and didn't win the men's one. And that was the day that Owen and I first met each other, very briefly as well. I think it was a bit of a tip of the hat, nod of the head.
Yeah. I was like,
hey,
who
buddy.
the fuck's this Alpha Elite guy?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? You were wearing the Alpha Elite t-shirt.
I had my Alpha Elite t-shirt on.
You were in good shape. You were actually pretty jacked at that time.
I was in good shape, yeah. I think, I was, because I was prepping for a comp then. So I would have been quite lean then. So I'd just gone from being quite big and heavy in the off season to coming down to lean. So I was in good shape because I remember that year after that was the last bodybuilding comp that I ever did. So that was cool. So ended up winning that, and I saw Owen across the table, and isn't it funny how where our minds go? I think there's funny stories on either side of this. You probably thought, who the hell is this guy? Something that I don't know if you even noticed either, but it's funny when I watched that video because I documented it on YouTube. One of my arms is way browner than the other arm. I don't know if you noticed that. No. But about an hour before the competition, when I was walking around the thing, some guy from a spray tan booth went, "Oh my God, look at your arms." He's like, "Come here." And he started spray tanning my arm.
Wow.
And he's like, "Your muscles are going to look even better." And he rolled my sleeve, sprayed my whole arm, and just left me with one spray tanned arm.
I didn't notice.
So when we watch that video back, you'll notice that now. So anyway, I had one spray tanned arm, which is quite funny. So my funny thought of when I met you was, who brings their mum to a hair competition? But now I think back to it, I thought, that's so cool. Like, that's really cool. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I would love, I couldn't think of, you know, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Well, background story there. So my mother is a hairdresser.
Yeah.
That's how I got into the hair industry. She had a salon in my hometown in Fermoy in Cork in Ireland, which is a small town, about 7,000 people. In our original origin story video from our first podcast, the network podcast, I actually said that Fermoy had 15,000 people, which is doubling the size of it, which is not true.
Wow.
Surrounding areas, all inclusive, probably has 15,000, but the town itself is 7,000. So she had a salon for 30 plus years, hence why I know the industry the way that I do. But she was actually in Australia at that time. She came for a holiday. That was my first time having anybody come and visit me. But it was actually that day of the competition that my mother told me to stay in Australia. She almost like, not that she needed to give me the permission slip, but I kind of got her seal of approval that like, this is the place that you need to be. She saw the competition. She saw what was going on. She was like, this is what you need to do. There's nothing for you in Fermoy. Like, you'd literally be a wasted talent at home in Fermoy. So she gave me the seal of approval that day as well. Interesting how things kind of transpired that year, because before that, I never thought that I'd be in like competition again with anything, because previously to doing hair, I was a professional cyclist, as you know. The people listening and watching this might not know. I did that when I left school for about 4 years, almost 5 years full time. What that looks like is not riding your bike down to the shop and getting your fucking groceries. It's full elite, professional, sporting athlete, riding bikes 20 to 30 hours a week. Serious business. Full shaved legs, spandex, the whole lot.
Nothing has changed.
No, not much has changed. But it's important to highlight like the level that it was. It wasn't just like some ride around the park. It was like serious business, you know? And when I became professional, I realized how serious that business was. And I realized pretty early on after signing the pro contract that, oh, if I want this smoke, if I want this kind of life, it's going to require a hell of a lot. And I kind of capped out, like I kind of ran out of talent in a way. I was never the most talented cyclist as a kid. I'm actually never, in anything that I do, I'm never the most talented person, but I'm able to find and pinpoint what I am good at and double down on that. As a cyclist, I was more like of an all-rounder. I would say that I've taken the same principles into barbering and into business now as well. And I put myself in environments, in places where I can get the best out of the talent that I do have. And the people around me will then make up for the talent that I don't. So like, environment has been huge for me right from the beginning. When I first started cutting hair, I looked around Cork at the time and I thought, who's the best known barber in Cork? And I need to go and I need to learn from that guy. Because if I learn from that guy, people will brand me by association with him. So I went to Paul Mack at the time in Cork. He was the best known, the most well known, the only person that was kind of pushing the boundaries, doing award-winning stuff. And he kind of opened up this whole world of what barbering could potentially be. Because growing up in Fermoy, watching my mom run her salon, that's all I ever saw. I saw her cutting people's hair, doing people's hair, going home wrecked, tired. Her body gave out on her in the end. That's why she had to retire. My worldview when it came to like what barbering could be had only expanded that far. So like when I saw what Paul was doing, it opened up the world of Instagram. The power of the internet is insane. Within my first year, my mother says this all the time, I did so much hair due to the power of Instagram and Snapchat at the time that I actually feel like I condensed like a 4-year apprenticeship into 1 year. At the end of year one, I was awarded Irish Barbering Apprentice of the Year, moved to Australia after going to an event like the events that we've been running for years, but it was with Menswear. Josh and Glenn ran a workshop in Dublin. Went there, saw that they were just in Australia. I was going to Australia for a wedding a couple of months later, and I just asked Josh a question. And if there's anything that we've learned over the years, and I'm sure you'll attest to this, but the power of where you'll actually end up in life is determined on the questions that you ask yourself and other people on a regular basis. If I didn't ask Josh that question that day, I might not be sitting here right now. And it's just a simple question. So like when you put yourself in proximity with people who have power, ask the questions. Because if somebody asked me that question right now, I'd do all I could in my power to help them do the same thing. And right now, luckily, due to all of the work that we've done over the years, I do have the power to do that for people. But it's just, are you going to ask the question? So I asked Josh, I said, hey, I was like, hey man, like, I'm thinking about going to Australia. Like, where do you think I should go? Because I wasn't even sure in what city yet at that point. And he was like, oh man, Melbourne. There's a sick barbershop in Melbourne. You should go there. I was like, yeah, cool. He was like, do you want me to message the guy now? So he pulled out his phone and he messaged Jordan at the time, right in front of me. And like, I was watching him typing the message, and he got back to him immediately. He was, you still looking for someone? Yeah. And then Josh turned to me, literally in the moment, and was like, when can you go? I need someone ASAP. And I was like, give me 6 weeks. Give me 6 weeks. I'll sort my shit out. At the time, I had hundreds of clients. I was making about €1,000 a week. I could see my whole life panned out in front of me. I literally was out for a walk with my mother one day. I was looking over the town of Fermoy, and I was like, in the nicest way possible, I was like, I've completed it. You know, I've always had this ability to be able to like look into the future and see, how is this going to pan out? Like, how is this going to eventuate? And it was the same thing with cycling. At a certain point, I was just like, this isn't going to end well. You know, I was looking around me. I was looking at all the guys that were 5, 6, 7 years older than me. They were all depressed. Some of them had brain damage, like no joke. They couldn't taste their food. Their bodies were wrecked. Their minds were wrecked. And they were going to have to leave and go and do something later that would have put them back to like the starting point of their life. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just skip the queue into reality here and like get a head start on this. So at like 21, 22, that's when I decided to pull the plug on cycling, not from a lack of trying, but just knowing when is the right time to like quit here. When is the right time to like give up on something? Not that I gave up, but I just knew when the right time to stop was. My story has been very interesting so far. I'm sure, you know, we'll dive a little bit deeper into it as we continue to go. But after building the business in Fermoy from zero to like €1,000 a week within 6 months by using Snapchat and Instagram, never went to barber school, learned from Paul Mac one night a week. I learned from doing. I literally put my hands into it, put my head into it, used the power of the internet, went to as many events as I could, went to the barber bashes, went to the events when they were popping up in Ireland, around Ireland. Neil Toner, Mickey Graham, they were kind of doing stuff at the time. And yeah, I just immersed myself in it, completely immersed myself in it. And I just sped up the process so much. And it's so cool like how time has kind of played out and like we're doing what we're doing now, because we can actually do that for people. We can help people accelerate the same way that I did. And I would say one of the biggest strengths and one of the biggest values that I kind of bring now as who I am and as a coach is the ability to be able to tell people, like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You don't have to listen to what people say. Like, you say this all the time about me and our classes and stuff, but if there's anybody who's broken literally all of the norms, all of the status quos, it would be me, like in the hair industry. When we met that day at the competition, I was only cutting hair for just over a year, like maybe like a year and a half, maybe. But like a couple of months later, I was on the global education team for Andis. At the time, that was huge because like Andis was a huge brand, still is a huge brand, but like at that time, the brand ambassadorships meant more. They weren't as easily given out as they are now. Like right now, it's like fucking something you can get out of a cereal box. You know, you don't even have to be good. They've copped on that, oh, we can get people to do free marketing for us. That's why we don't work with any brands anymore. Back then, it wasn't that. There was a bit more merit to it, and they were putting together an Australian education team. It wasn't that I was just part of it either. I was leading that team. Like, if you really think back to what that was, I'm going to blow my own trumpet here in this podcast because fuck it, I never do. We never really talk about ourselves. We haven't done something like this for a while. But like, it wasn't like I was just making up the numbers in that team.
No.
I was leading the way, like in everything that I was doing. Consistency, posting online, delivering good education to people at the time. You know, it was huge. So things really, really accelerated very quickly for me when I moved to Melbourne. I went from being a big fish in a small pond in Ireland to being a big fish in a bigger pond in Australia. And man, it's just been hectic since then. And where our journey kind of continues from is like, we kept seeing each other at all the competitions that year. And I remember just looking at Lee's skill set, and I was like, at the time I was like, all right, we've got the clipper work stuff and the barbering stuff down more than you had at the time. But like the scissor work and like the hairdressing side of things and the styling was like insane. You know, we were like, wow, that's something that's just not done in hair, because you'd been in the hair industry a lot longer.
Been there a long time,
yeah. How crazy.
It was funny for me. For me, I remember the second time we met was the continuation of that hair expo. They did 2 that year. They did one in Melbourne, one in Sydney. One was like the pre-show for the big show. And they did the one in Melbourne, which is where we met. And then we met again in Sydney. And that was great because there were different companies. Again, Josh and Charlie came over from Menspire, and you know, I was assisting them. I got a haircut, and you guys were friends with them, obviously. So you were assisting, and you were there, and we were just in each other's environments. And Naz was there, and I got a little bit of video for Naz, and just there was some really cool stuff happening. And there's an iconic photo. Maybe we'll put it in here or here, which I took of everybody at that time. You know, like you guys, the area team were there, Naz is there, Josh is there, Charlie's there, Ben Kane's there, like all the people who I looked up to at that time. I was like, holy crap, I just got a picture of everybody in this moment. And there was a part in my head, I thought, yeah, I need to get on the other side of this lens. Like I need to get on that side. And in my head, it's just an iconic photo. Like I couldn't wait to give it to you guys. And I was just like, that marked a moment. But in that was great. There was a lot of serendipitous moments, and there was a lot of weird synchronicities and things happening. Even that first show, even the first time we met, that was, if we really started to link everything together, it was probably such a serendipitous moment. That second time, I remember the thing that sealed the deal was we went to the awards, and I was sat on a table. So I went in with Josh and Charlie. Josh introduced me to a guy, somebody, I can't remember his first name, somebody Reyes. He's got a big Instagram following. It's called I Like to Cut Hair. You know, I don't know if you know that guy. He introduced me to him. I was sat on the table with him. Josh and Charlie disappeared because they went off talking to loads of people. This dude wasn't even talking, so I was like, cool, I'm just at this table on my own. And I turned around and I saw you guys on the other table. And you were like, oh, you can't sit on your own. Like, come and sit over here. And I was like, oh, he's a really nice dude. Like, it was different to what I thought you guys were going to be like, because there was a mystique around everybody, you know. And I was like, what a nice dude. And I think that's probably solidified our relationship over anyone else's. And then after that, again, like I remember we met again at another competition, and that day I remember you saying, fucking that haircut, and in my head I'm thinking, that's not even my best work, it's not even that good, because
it was your mate's hair as well.
It was Ben's hair, and the reason I didn't think it was that good is because I couldn't wash it. He came with his hair not washed, and I was like, this is not going to be that good, it's going to be a bit greasy, it's going to be a bit oily. Anyway, I cut it, and it was kind of cool. It was a cool looking haircut. I look at it and I'm like, yeah, it was okay. But anyway, on that level at that time, it was such a normal thing for me from a hairdressing standpoint that obviously it looked impressive to barbering at the time. And yeah, and I thought in my head, I was like, cool, so I've got something in my back pocket that I can offer. I really want to know what these guys do. I think I saw you do some crazy one-sided fade or something, and I was like, that's sick. And then I saw Danny do some fade that went like backwards on some guy's head. I was like, well, that's sick too. Like, I want to know that. Like, how'd you get it so clean so fast? Because we had like 30 minutes to do the thing. You ended up winning that one in doing 30-minute haircuts, which was really cool. Really amazing to see. I don't know, something in my head, I was like, how can I keep this going? Here's a tip in life and in business: pay for proximity. I came to you, I drove 2 hours to get a haircut from you and paid it. I was like, I don't care what the price is. I was making great money in the salon. It wasn't the thing of the price, and paid it. We had great chats. I think that happened maybe a couple of times. I was always carrying my camera with me because I was trying to be a vlogger at the time, and there's videos on YouTube of the proof of all of this from 2017 where I'm literally vlogging, walking through the park near where we used to work, saying, oh, I've just been to Dairy Studio, seen a guy called Owen. Like, if anyone's out there wants to go, definitely recommend go and see these guys. And then the opportunity came. You were like, we need someone at the shop's growing, like we need someone else to work here. You were like, when you come and work here, you know, my first thought was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So I was trying to get my visa. I was, jam packed in the shop. I was working 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes when they needed me on a Saturday. I do Monday to Friday. They needed me on a Saturday. It was so busy. And I was like, how on earth is that going to happen? Because I didn't have the freedom yet of the visa. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this work. And my partner at the time, it was a real blessing about what she said to me, because I remember, I don't know if it might be on that video, but I said, the only reason I would move is to work with those guys. That's the only reason I would go and work in Melbourne, is to work with those guys. There was nowhere else that really took my fancy. I was like, I don't really care about anywhere else. I was like, I could cut hair good. It's fine. But you guys had something special that I didn't have at the time. And I remember saying it, I was like, the only reason would be to go work with those guys. Then it was like serendipitous again. You were like, this thing's come up. And I remember telling her, and she was like, you can't not do it. Like, you have to do it. You've said the only reason. And I was like, cool. All right, I'm going to make it work. So I squashed all of my work down into 4 days. And then I'd come up to see you guys on the weekend. Mm. And that began, and it's like, why is that useful? Because that's the mentality it takes sometimes.
And it's not even that you paid by coming to get haircuts, but you also paid with your time and effort. That's something that at the time we recognized. And like, what's important there is that like, you don't actually have to do that much to like put yourself in a position where you can drastically change your life. No. Like, it's crazy, right? Like, the amount of people that when we first started doing education at Area came to Area, the very first one-on-one that I ever did, I think it was the first ever session at Area Academy, Bifdu, who ended up working with us. Yeah. Benji was the next one, ended up working with us. So sometimes, investing, it's like even now, up to today, Thor invested in our 3-day course, joined the mentorship, and now he's part of our team. Yeah. And where he's going to go from here is going to be an insane journey to follow. But like, you just sometimes got to put yourself in those positions so that you can be recognized and noticed. And sometimes it's just about showing up and being there and doing the thing.
I totally believe that. It's a trait that I look for in people, is like just showing up, and sometimes there's just, look, it's completely up to you how you want to live your life, but sometimes just putting your neck out there for a couple of years is not a bad thing. And it's like, while you're young as well, why not? It's like one of the guys that we follow says in the coaching world, like, you just haven't earned the right yet to demand and be like, well, I want this and I want top dollar from day one and I want this. It's like, there was a point I wanted it so bad and I wanted to get it. I saw opportunity and I was like, I can get this. I can do this. I've already proven myself in so many different levels, given myself so many levels of evidence. Is it going to be uncomfortable for a minute? Yeah, there's going to be extra work, extra travel. And at a certain point, it was a 7-day-a-week job. Like, it was 4 days a week in the salon. It was 2 days a week on the barbershop floor. Then it was when we started working our previous company, Area Academy, that was working a Sunday as well. So sometimes it was a 7-day-a-week job. But I was okay with it because I wanted it bad enough.
Mm. It's the traits that were built previous to that and whilst doing it, right? Like, for me, like, coming from the cycling background, hair was a piece of piss. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it was just so fucking easy. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like I moved to Belgium when I was 17. When I was in school, I was the only person in my whole year that didn't fill out the forms for college. And that was a big problem at the time. My teachers were like, this is fucking crazy. What are you doing? You can't do that. Like, my mother was called in for meetings, the whole lot. My thing was like, I signed for a team in Belgium, but what did I have to do to sign for the team in Belgium? They didn't come and find me in Fermoy. I had to send my CV out to all of those people. So I had to position myself as attractive enough for them to want to give me the opportunity. And they did. Somebody just said, yeah, cool. Come over and do a trial. So in 5th year in school, went over and did a trial, came back to do my 6th year, which is the last year in school in Ireland, knowing that I was going to go back to Belgium and pursue a career as a professional. So I didn't really give a shit about school because of that. And I remember one of my teachers at the time said something to me which stuck with me. And this is one of the best lessons that I've ever learned. But he was like, Owen, you can't have a plan B. Because everyone was saying to me, you need to fill out the forms, you need to fill out the CAO, you need to apply for college. And he was the only person, apart from my mother at the time. And my dad would just kind of go along with it anyway. He was kind of happy-go-lucky, like, yeah, whatever you want to do, I'll support it kind of thing. He said, don't have a plan B, because the plan A that you're going after is going to get hard. At some point, it's going to get hard. And if you know that you have a plan B sitting there, you're going to quit before it's easy to quit. Before it's time to actually quit, right? So how did he know that was the case? Because he actually started cycling himself, and I used to see him at the weekends at races and different bits and pieces. But up until that point, he didn't get it. He would have been on board with all the other teachers. So coming into hair from that was like, whoa. I took a lot from my cycling journey, moving to Belgium when I was 17, leaving the comfort zone completely, having to figure out life in a country where they didn't speak English as their first language, had to find my way to bike races, had to feed myself, had to do all of these things. And growing up, I would have been, my grandfather was quite wealthy. So like, we would have always been branded as like the golden spoon, like kind of family in Fermoy. But he kind of lost most of his wealth before we even had the chance to like see it or experience it, right? I never really experienced any of it, only when I was very young. And I still have fond memories of that. But I think that's also where like my mindset comes from, is my grandfather had a mansion in my hometown. Like, I'm not even talking like a big house, like a mansion, like swimming pool, Rolls Royces in the garage, came from absolutely nothing. Car salesman, built his way up to what he had, lost it all, not all, but lost a fair bit of it. But yeah, what a story. What an incredible story. And then obviously my mother with the hair salon, her kind of entrepreneurial tendencies, and her family are farmers. So like the grit and the hard work and the resilience and that kind of background is there as well. But to take the traits from that and bring it across to barbering, I knew that, okay, I might not be the best barber in the world, but I also wasn't the best cyclist in the world. I just had to position myself in such a way where I brought value to the environments that I was in, so much so that I became the most valuable. So in cycling, what was funding cycling teams? And this is the thing, most cyclists never actually got this. They didn't see the business side of it. They were like, so what was actually funding cycling teams? The sponsors. And I knew how to play it well with the sponsors. I could write. I positioned myself very well as a brand. In 2011, I did 57 blog posts. That's over a blog a week. Out to the internet, sharing my story, sharing my journey. Thanks to Gary V, he kind of brought that to my awareness. It's like document versus create, document the journey, and along the way you'll create amazing things. But to bring that into hair, it was an easier game to play than cycling was, because as soon as I came to Australia, I had the unique value proposition. I was Irish, people like my accent. Over time, I had to prove myself for quite some time at area before I was kind of given, what would you say? Any kind of say or like power to like make decisions, right? So right around the time that you came in, I kind of had that by then, because I'd won the competition. I think that was almost like my initiation. It's like I won the competition, Victorian Barber of the Year or whatever it was. My first ever time doing 30-minute haircuts. That was that day that we're talking about.
That was the one. Victorian
Barber of the Year. Bear in mind, this is like less than 2 years into my hair journey, from zero, like never cut someone's hair before, to Victorian Barber of the Year. And the only reason I did a one-sided fade is because I realized I don't have time to do the other side. So like, I'll just do that.
Let's turn it into something cool.
So it was critical thinking. It was critical thinking on the spot. But where it kind of transpired from there, obviously the Andis thing happened. Did that then for like a year and a half or whatever it was. You came to work at Area. We worked together. I was on a different kind of journey for the first year or so. I was partying a lot, and I was going out, and I was getting drunk, and I was taking drugs, and I was partying in Melbourne and getting with girls, and sorry, Hannah, but all of it, right? Like, it was just like what I was doing. I was like, what was the thing that people would say? I was making up for lost time. Because of my cycling career, I never really did that, right? I was disciplined. I was the one that was inside when everyone else was out partying, and then college and all that kind of stuff. So I was on a different type of journey for those first couple of years, but we always had a good relationship. The education thing kind of just naturally transpired from there. You know, we kept going to the shows. The rest of the guys around us at the time kind of stopped. You and I just kept going. Next big part of the story is the time you went to Brisbane by yourself. You want to tell that part?
Yeah. So,
or is there more in between? Maybe
yeah, there's more in between, but like, it's funny how it's easy to forget parts of the story. Like, I would show up and just assist you for, I reckon, 2 years I did that, maybe.
And
18
bear in mind, you had a lot more experience than me as well when it came to that. But you were still, like, I remember at that time, you were still like such a sponge to me, even at that time.
Yeah.
You were like, what can I learn from this guy?
Yeah.
Like, you had all the right in the world to be like, nah, fuck you. Like, because a lot of the people in our environment at that time
They thought the same.
would have thought that. They were like, what can Owen teach me? It's Owen.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's the power of curiosity, though. You know, I saw early that there was something there. You know, and I mean, what year are we even talking? 2017. I would have been 12 years into my career. 2018, 13 years into my career. Like, that's a long time cutting hair. Long time. And I'd seen great people do it. I'd been to great classes, great people. And I thought, yeah, there's something here. And this is interesting. Owen's doing something that these people aren't doing. So what's there? And I fortunately, I'd done a lot of research, read a lot of books, watched tons of stuff, you know, people like Ty Lopez and Warren Buffett, and listening to those guys talking about how to get great mentors and how to get yourself around talent. It's one of the lost arts of the modern day, is like actually putting yourself in rooms with humility. And it doesn't matter about age, doesn't matter about talent. If there's something you don't have, you got to go get it. And it doesn't matter who it comes from. Yeah, I would be like, cool, cut my hair. I saw it from both sides. I saw it as a spectator, and I saw it being the model. I was like in the chair while you were doing it, listening, hearing, seeing what was going on, you telling the stories. And yeah, so I would just assist. And eventually I got a chance to do it myself just by showing up. There was a space available on the stage, and the guy who was running the Andis team at the time was like, hey, we've got these spaces. Do you want to have a go? Have you got your tools on you? And yeah, there was a split moment where I was like, oh, no, I don't know. And then I was like, you know what? It's now or never. I'm glad I took that moment. So that year, I was on a bit of a crusade. So I went to, I think it was the HBIA ones that we did together. I thought I was going to do well there. I did okay. I got like a second for something, and I
should have won that day. You were robbed.
Yeah, now when I look back at it now, though, knowing what I know now about like context and things, just I reckon if I switched a couple of them around, it would have done a lot better. It was just that the context was off a little bit. But anyway, regardless, that was fine. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep going this year. I'm just going to keep hammering it. This could be the year. Then I went to the Brisbane Hair and Beauty Expo, and nothing happened there either. I had high hopes there, and when I got there, it was a lot to do with the model. The model's hair wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and then I was like, well, yeah, I did the best of what I could. Anyway, I didn't really deserve to win that day because it wasn't great. And then I was like, I'm just going to keep going, And then I went to Brisbane again on my own to the Barber Expo. I ended up winning. I won my first Barber of the Year, Australian Barber of the Year that day. There was a heat. Again, I'd organised the model going up. I only had a model for the heat. That was great. Took loads of clothes in a suitcase. I dressed him up. I did a killer haircut. And I remember the mindset that I went in with that day. I'd seen the guy. I asked him one question. I was like, are you fussy? And he's like, no. I was like, you happy for me to do whatever I want? He was like, do whatever you want. I was like, great. He was like, as long as you can cut it to some kind of normal haircut afterwards. I was like, leave it to me. Did that, and in my head there was a moment I looked around and looked at everybody, and I was like, I reckon I got this. There was only one guy there that I thought he could be a potential competitor, and he'd already won the New Zealand one. A guy called Wayne, great barber as well, and they'd flown him over to compete in this one. They were like, "You've won the New Zealand one, come over and compete in the Australian one." And I was like, "Well, he does nice work." And I knew, from our previous stuff and stuff that I'd already done, it was model dependent, it was haircut dependent. I just looked around and I thought, I'm just going to go for it. And the mindset I had was, you know what you're doing. Just trust your techniques, trust your systems, and don't do anything you don't know how to do. That was what I told myself. I was like, don't try new stuff here. So, boom, went in, only used the tools that I needed to use, only did the stuff that I knew how to do, did it quick, did it clean, did it nice, and it was good enough to win. So that was really cool.
Yeah, there was lots of that at that time. I think, like, if we were to look at it now, area back then was what Man United was in the 90s. In terms of barbershop team, like in my opinion, we had the best barbershop team in the world. In terms of diversity, menswear are great, of course, don't get me wrong, like, iconic brand. But, like, the diversity that
Like
we could...
At that time?
Yeah, it was just
Was
insane.
next level.
And the quality was just... It was different to what it is now. It's not the same anymore. Like, the quality even of the photographs that were going out, the quality of the haircuts that were going out at every day in the barbershop was insane. But there's so much more of the story to go. Like, now that you're telling this, I'm like, fucking hell, so much more of it to go. But to, like, condense it down, I guess, from here, we then kind of started to get inquiries about our education. It was like, not even education, it was just like, can you show me how you do that? And that's kind of slowly how the education thing just started to snowball. I was obviously doing it with Andis for quite some time. And then at a certain point, we just realized, you know what, we need to do this ourselves.
Just do our own one, yeah.
And then COVID happened. Throughout COVID, the way I look back on it now is like, for some people, it was a reason to just drink every day and do fuck all and be lazy. But for others, they used the opportunity to, like, create a new future for themselves. And that's exactly what we did. So basically, we just poured out all of the IP that was in our heads into an educational offering, which was at the time Area Academy. So we started that as a new business. We ran that for, I think it was 6 to 9 months at the time. And then that's when lockdown number 2 happened in Melbourne, like Melbourne being the most locked down city in the world throughout those years. So then we had to basically be creative and innovate again during lockdown number 2. So what did we do then? The online platform. Yeah. So we did the online platform, which was the Network by Area Academy. We had the podcast, the Network by Area Academy, if you want to go and look that up. There's about 30 episodes of us talking about our journeys at that time, which is time-stamped back then. But, long story short, we ran that for a couple more years. Massive point in my journey was then realizing about a year or so into business, I went to an event that Lee actually introduced me to, which was my first ever coach. It ended up being my first ever coach. Proper coach was a guy called Kerwin Ray. Rest in peace, Kerwin. He actually passed away a couple of months ago, which is pretty sad. But after that event, I realized, holy shit, this business thing is, like, kind of a big deal in the grand scheme of life. Like, it's not the most important thing in life, but it can definitely facilitate the most important things in life. And my framing at the time, and for lack of a better word now, is like, if I don't get this right, this could be detrimental, and I'm just going to repeat the same patterns and the same cycles that had happened in my family and have happened for many other people that I could see in that environment. Like, there was people who were in their 40s and 50s and having these awakenings, being like, holy shit, I just spent my whole life working and my kids grew up and I didn't get to spend any time with them, and now I'm nearly dead. That was kind of the frame. And I realized, fuck, nah, can't have that happen. So I took a pretty big leap at that time and joined Kerwin's coaching group, which was 50,000 Australian at the time. That's what I was earning in the barbershop per year.
For the year.
I was earning that for the year. I had about 5,000 or 6,000 in my account, and I had to, like, basically sell everything that I owned. I had to strip myself back to basics, got rid of all of the nice clothes that I had, got rid of bikes, got rid of everything, found creative ways to make money, got the money together and joined the program, made it work. They were like, within a month, we need the 50K. Within a month.
Yeah.
So 25 grand as a deposit and another 25 grand. Now that was a big bet on myself. But the framing around it was, at the time, from Kerwin and the team. This was one thing he said. It's never a question of resources. It's always a question of resourcefulness. And to this day, that investment is still the best lesson that I've ever learned in business. Because when shit hits the fan, as a business owner, you need to be able to make money and pull money out of your ass, because otherwise you're just not going to have a good time in business. Yeah. And his framing was, if you can't put together 50 grand, you probably shouldn't be in business. And I was like, yeah.
So true, man. So true.
Like if you can't find a way to make 50K, maybe question it. Now, the funny thing is, a couple of months later, put that money down, big bet, big risk, didn't have any backing at the time either. We ended up making that money back within a very short period of time due to the knowledge that we were able to accumulate from being around people in that group. For context, that group had 300 plus business owners from all industries, gave us amazing insight into just business in general, took us out of the barbering world and put us into the business world in general, and the effect and the connection that has with life in general. And it really changed the game for us as a company, and it completely flipped the company on its head. And that's ultimately, to cut a long story short from there, that's ultimately why we ended up eventually parting ways with Area. Because, not to go into the details, but it was a values thing. We changed as people. Our values became different. Our mission became different to what we had initially signed up for. And when there's misalignments in life, like in cycling, like in other things, there's a time to quit. There's a time where quitting is for winners, and that's a great one that Stephen Bartlett articulated one time that was very on point for us. But that really changed everything for us. And, basically overnight, we just had, multi 6-figure business with the education company, and just overnight, all right, that's it, done, wrapped up. But we were able to take the skills that we had learned from the business coaches, from our career so far, the reputation that we built, the brand that we built throughout that time. It was never highlighted to me more at that time that it was so important to be doing all of the posts on Instagram all that time. Because, sometimes people are like, oh, what are you posting for anyway? It's like, that's why you're posting. Because with an audience, things are easy. Without an audience, things are hard. We had an audience and we had clients. And that's when the coaching thing really started to kind of spiral in our minds. And coaching was the thing that allowed us to really move to the next part of our business. So then we started 101 education from there. And it was just me and you. We broke off on our own journey. But, I'm forever grateful for all of those years at Area. They were great times.
I'll look back on it. It's been a key part of my journey.
Forever grateful for those times. And forever grateful for Jordan and all of the support that he gave us throughout those years. And, we wish them nothing but the best from here. And, it didn't end on the best terms. It could have ended better. I would like to say now that the dust has settled a little bit, that was less from our end than anything else. But looking at it now, life's too short to be holding on to this kind of stuff, and we kept on moving. But we did amazing things there. You even won Barber of the Year again for the second time when we were at Area. We got special recognition awards.
Yeah, we won. Yeah, I won Barber of the Year for the second time. You got a special recognition award, which you can't actually apply for. You have to be awarded that, collectively voted by the industry. We won a team collection award. And at that time, we were doing some great campaign work. We were doing ads for different brands. And
that's when I started working with Dyson as well. Yeah, Dyson
gig came along. That was huge. Like we did the first ever men's hair campaign for one of the hairdryers. It was like the black Onyx hairdryer. Like that was a huge moment. Funny how we met the guy from Dyson. We met him on an aeroplane. Yeah. It was the most random thing ever. We were sat next to him on the aeroplane. Talk about a serendipitous moment.
Well, this is the thing, right? Like to bring a lesson in from that. So like I always felt like a bit of an imposter working with Dyson. Like I always felt like this should be Lee working with Dyson, not me. Like in a way. If it was down to skill set, right?
Well, if it was down to skill.
But it wasn't down to skill set.
We're not talking about
it. Wasn't.
That, yeah.
But what was interesting about when we met the guy from Dyson on the airplane was the year before at Hair Expo, I went there, I got little business cards printed out. Bear in mind as well, this is another part of the story that hasn't been told, but like every penny that I was making in the barbershop and out of it with education was being poured back into it. I spent it all on branding, on video with Sean. Yeah. Shout out to Sean. We spent a lot of time with Sean and our videographer.
Really cool stuff with Sean.
Very high end amazing. Like, to the point where it's like, you're way too good to be working with us now. Like, you need to go and work with like music artists, which he is now doing.
Which you did.
I went to Hair Expo with a small business card. Like, I got it made up, kind of modeled my branding at the time, aligned it with Dyson's. It was in my head. I was like, I want to be the first person who works with Dyson as an ambassador for men's hair. Did it.
Made it happen.
But it happened for me when I put it into, I made it real. So I made it up, made it real, and then made it happen. We could have met James on the airplane at any time, being anyone, right? But like, when he asked us who we were and what we did, we were just looking at some stuff on the iPad for like a show that we had that night. And he was like, oh, do you guys work for like L'Oreal or something? We were like, no, we're Area Academy. And he was like, oh yeah, I've seen you guys around.
Yeah.
Now that's huge. The fact that he's like, I've seen you guys around.
Yeah.
On a free app, like, use these apps. He saw us, and then because he knew us, there was instant trust. And he was like, we should do some work together. And I was like, yes, we should.
Yes, we should.
And that's how that happened. That was a really cool part of the journey too. So that was all pre-101. And I guess from there, we just kind of built our own brand. And that's when the second podcast came along, Unlimited. And that kind of started the whole idea of playing with like Unlimited as a concept and like bringing it into like the coaching world and what we're doing with people now. And like the way that we're serving people now and ourselves in our own lives is just insane. It's walking a road that's never really been walked before. There's other barber coaches in the hair industry. There's other people doing similar things, but not in the way that we're doing it. It's the holistic point of view.
And with the experience that we have, like, I've had a long career and you've had an equally as long career in terms of stuff that you've done in a short space of time. Like, there's so many. I mean, we could do origin story all day. There's so many things that we haven't touched on, but
price point we haven't touched on.
We haven't touched on price point. We were one of
that's another thing.
The first to people to be the most expensive, probably in the whole country, I'd say. But that's just another piece of proof in the pudding. But like, for me, even I think your massive moment was the Dyson thing. I mean, the first ever men's hairdresser or barber, whatever you want to categorize it as, to be an ambassador for a global. It was a global level too, not just Australian. It was like global ambassador for Dyson, the hairstyling tool company. Incredible, most innovative hairstyling company in the world. But for me, 2022, I joined the Fame team, applied, got in, first ever like men's hairdresser, barber to do that too. I mean, these are iconic moments. Like, our stories are filled with experience and knowledge and value and just really good traits and really good moments. Like, that's what a lot of other educators and coaches don't have.
And it's a tough one these days, right? Like, we're sitting right now in one of our coaches' studios, Darren, who's our podcast coach, right? And just somebody that we look up to a lot in many respects, not just for podcast coaching. But when somebody, even like Darren or anyone, is like, so tell me a little bit about you, it's like, where do I even begin?
Don't really know where to begin, yeah.
Because there's also parts of the story that are missing from the area days, from 101 days. Like, we can touch on them a little bit more. But like, I got to cut hair from Man United.
Yeah.
You know, we were the first people to charge $100 plus in Melbourne and be fully booked. Now, something that's interesting about that was I wasn't charging that money. Like, this is another trait, like, and another thing that's worth talking about, because those first years that we worked at Area Academy, we didn't pay ourselves.
No,
we didn't actually take home and see the benefit of any of the money.
We reinvested it all back into the company.
Yeah, we put it all back into what we were doing.
Into the production, into all of it.
Yeah, building the brand and the reputation, because ultimately that's what's allowed us to live the life that we're living today. You know, when I first started charging 100, I've actually never charged 100 for a haircut, because the day that I was going to 100, I said, fuck it, let's just put it to 120.
You went straight
literally on the day. Like,
completely.
I was going like from 80 to 100 and I was like, nah, let's just go to 120.
Yeah.
Because my logic at the time was not because I want to make more money. It was like, I need more time back. At the time, my visa was still attached to the barbershop, so I had to work in the barbershop to make up my visa terms. But like, I just found a way, like you did with the salon, to be like, how can I make this work? And I condensed my work into a smaller space of time, still made the same amount of money, but bought my time back.
Loads of time
so I bought like 3 or 4 days of my time back that I could now spend working on the academy, which it needed at that time. Like, without that, we'd still be there. We'd still be cutting hair in the barbershop.
Yeah.
You need to buy your time back if you want to get eventually to a point where you do something like we do. And that's not for everybody. I get that. But that was the reason why. And everyone else that came behind us has benefited from that, because all of the people who've come to the academy over the years are now all charging more money.
And I think that's one of those really powerful points about our education and our coaching is, like I said before, it's filled with so much of that experience. We've done so many things that have like pioneered the space. But something that we've always done is we've always given it back to the people. Like anything we learn from experience, from systems that we learn, from things that we've done, how we've bought back our time, how we've built a company, multiple companies now, and sold over 7 figures of hair education and coaching. You know, we always give that back to the people. And I think the more experiences we can put ourselves through, the more valuable we're going to be to everybody else. And that is what I just implore people to ask the questions, because I only wish this was available when I was coming up in the game. If this was available in the first 5 years, I guarantee I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I'd be well retired by now. Just given by what you've already heard from our stories, like the traits that we have, the go-getters, the goal-setters, the resilience that we have. There's a story of resilience here as well that not a lot of people can have. Like there's lots of things that have happened for us in the last couple of years that would melt most people, completely destroy them. And here we are, still here, still in Bali, with all of our time to ourselves, plenty of money, plenty of time, plenty of joy, plenty of impact, plenty of freedom.
And what's super cool about that, and like I would implore anybody to go down the road of mentoring and sharing and being a coach and consultant, even if it's on a level where you're just doing it with your team. But like what we've been able to do for the people that have come into our world has just been insane. Like even like if you're thinking about like Barber of the Year, right? Lee started shooting collections, all of a sudden just became the best at that as well. But helping like Emma win Barber of the Year. Yeah. It's like there's a formula to this. And that's why like everything that we've done over the years, like we've accumulated and put into this lovely little model like that has 3 circles, and like that, it literally explains it all. Yeah. And that's where Unlimited comes from, right? Like I think all the time, like throughout our journey, we've always been in pursuit of the unlimited life, whatever that looks like for us, right? And for me, that does look like money, impact, and freedom. And as long as I'm doing those 3 things, I'm pretty good. If I can make good money and I can make impact with the work that I do for myself and for other people, and I can have freedom and I can help other people do that for myself and for other people, and I can set up a fantastic life for me and my family, and then we can do this together and like have this journey and experience life to its absolute fullest and max. That is something that I want to commit my life to doing. And like I've even been thinking about the next iteration of where are we going to go next with this, because we're not going to be doing this forever the way that we're currently doing it. And I thought about this on the bike the other day. I haven't even said this to you yet, but it's like helping people discover their genius and unpack their genius that they can live an unlimited life. Because a lot of people that we know and that will listen to this have talent, and it's not a talent problem that they have. There's loads of talent. It's a belief problem. And then on top of the beliefs, it's a systems problem. Yes. It's like belief systems, but then actual systems to be able to take what you know and turn it into a way of life. So like the lifestyle business is the biggest opportunity that exists in 2025 and beyond.
I'm going to say this on the camera. Like, I don't know if there's anyone out there that does it as good as we do it right now in terms of systemizing our experiences. Like, we just keep proving it to ourselves and our clients that what do you want to know that I've done? I'll systemize it for you, and I'll wrap it up in a nice little bow, and I'll give it to you, and you go and do it, and voila, it works. You want to put 6 figures on your top line in your business this year? Hey, I've got the system for you. You want to go and win Barber of the Year this year? Hey, I've got the system for you. Like, hey, you want to go work with a brand? Because we've helped people do that too. Hey, I've got the system for you. You want to put your prices up by X amount, within the next week because it's SOS? Hey, I've got the system for you. And that's a beautiful frame, and something that we've been speaking about lately is like, I don't wish for much and I don't expect much. But one thing I do wish is I wish people would realize that we're doing this to help people, not to make people look wrong or bad or stupid. And that's why I think our origin story is so important. That there's something about going first. There's a weight carried when you go first. so that others don't have to. And we always package it up and give it back. And from the outside looking in, it might not look like that, but once you come into our world, you realize, wow. And our guys got to see it firsthand. Like this year when they came to Bali Business Mastery, we put on a 5-day event for our coaching group, an in-person coaching event, which was absolutely phenomenal. I recommend anybody coming to the next one later in the year. But a common comment from lots of people was, wow, like what you guys put into this is next level. Like next level. And to us, it kind of feels weird for me sometimes because I know that that's what we do, but I also know that we've optimized our lives so much that it feels easeful and joyful and there's flow to it. And sometimes I think we probably could be doing more, but yeah, there's just so much that goes into it, and it's here to help people, and it's there. And I just wish it was available when I was around, and it is available now. And yeah, it's one of the things, like from my whole life, I've done my best, and you've done the same. We've done our best to find and seek knowledge. And sometimes that was hard, really hard. Like to find great hairdressing knowledge was hard once upon a time. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was harder. To find business coaching as a self-employed barber was very hard. To find someone who was willing to just give you the system to win Barber of the Year almost didn't exist.
And so we're at the point now where we're actually willing to just give everybody everything. Like a common comment that we've been making on our recent coaching calls is like, just take what we've done and copy it and model it and just do it because we know it works. Like we've literally carved out the difficult path for people so that they can accelerate and get there much, much faster. And we've seen it, like you just mentioned, we've seen it. And I think the biggest and the hardest thing for us so far has been actually articulating our clients' results without it coming across as like we're trying to like just always sell our program.
Yeah.
And I think, we'll crystallize it and there's no rush on it. I believe that in the same thought earlier when I was thinking helping people unpack their genius, I think we found our calling with this. Like I don't see beyond unlimited right now. I'm like, I think this is the one. This is the one. Like when the hair existed, even in 101, as great as it was, as long as the hair was there for us and our hands were on the tools, we were kind of stuck.
We knew there was a time frame on that as well.
But, there's something to be said for like doing it too, like we're here, we're in Bali, we're living the life that we say we live. We're putting the work in. We're far from where we want to be. Like there's more, but we've done incredible things, and the unlimited model and like how we've kind of packaged it all up now and how we're able to help people with it moving forward has never felt as good as it feels. And we did some workshops this year, the unlimited barber workshops, and my mother got to come and experience it, and she was even saying it, she didn't do a price increase in her business for 7 years. I didn't realize this, but for 7 years, and it's probably partly the reason as to why she had to close the salon as well, because of that. I remember when she came to the workshop, she really got it. It was like, okay, I get it now. And she could see the good that would have done her earlier in her career and her life.
Then that's the proof in the pudding, right? Like I said, it hasn't always been this easy to get your hands on this information. So take it while it's here, because it could, like we said, it could change form. It's changed form already, and it could change form again.
Yeah. And probably something in my career, I just wish I asked questions earlier, more questions, still to this day.
Well, sadly, we've just experienced it. One of our great mentors, as you've just been speaking about, Kerwin Ray, he passed away, and thank God we asked the questions that we needed to and got the information we did, because there's so many people that I've spoken to that said, oh, I wish I worked with him. I wish I went to the show. I wish. There's gonna come a day where you can't. And it's the same with people. Just get the. This is gonna sound a bit morbid, but it's like, get them while they're alive, please. It's like Charlie Munger, right? One of the greatest minds of the planet ever to exist. The brainchild of Berkshire Hathaway. Dude's dead now. Can't get him anymore. You know, it's like, it's coming. So please just get it while these great minds exist, and while you can ask the questions, and while you can put yourselves in the room, because just waiting for that, maybe I'm a skeptic. That's one of the worst things. One of the things that irks me the most about people is skeptics. It's like, yeah, we can all be skeptical, but like, just put yourself in the room, dude. Come on. Like, you're not that smart. You know, no one's that smart. You can learn something in every room.
That's another common theme that we've touched on throughout the stories, is just putting ourselves in the rooms with people who are doing it better than us. We do it very often, very frequently. Because
even if you don't learn something that you have to do, you learn something that you don't need to do. And we've even had that in education. We paid to go to education classes, and when you're like, well, the education wasn't that great, but at least we know now what not to do. I didn't learn anything new.
It's more important to know what you don't want than what it is that you do, oftentimes.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's a snapshot of our story.
That was fun.
Very fun.
Thanks for being here.